Welcome back to Secret Weapons, and today we're taking a look at the NeuralDSP Morgan Amp Suite. So covering NeuralDSP plugins is something I really enjoy doing on this channel, and part of that is the fact that everything they do just sounds really good, regardless of whether or not the plugin or the genre touch points that it is kind of like aspiring to is right for you. There is no getting around the fact that their plugins just sound probably best in class for what they are doing in this industry, but partially because even when it's not a genre touch point that I necessarily kind of have a background in, it's fun to experience high quality and accessible incarnations of phenomenal and in some cases legendary amps or rigs. That, however, is not the case today, and that's because today we are talking about the Morgan Amp Suite from NeuralDSP, a series of 3 amplifiers with a pedal and wet effects suite that could not be more in my wheelhouse. And these 3 amps are, respectively, a kind of like chime, top boost based Vox voiced amplifier, a modernized Princeton, and the clean channel of a hand-wired Dumble. And I mean, if you know this channel, you know that kind of like vintage voiced style amplifiers being kind of like kicked and pushed into modern genre touch points is my bread and butter. And I mean, here's the thing. You haven't seen it on this channel because I actually have not taken possession of it yet, but I have owned a Morgan PR12 for the last several months, and it has just been in the possession of a buddy of mine who picked it up for me in Los Angeles. Trust me, I wish that we were doing a shootout of my real-life PR12 and the emulation of the PR12 in this video, but alas, that'll have to happen after NAMM when I pick up my real tube amp and can shoot them out in person. But all that to say, and to that point, I didn't buy that PR12 knowing this was going to be a amp suite that Neural was bringing to the market. I had already bought that because I've heard what the PR12 sounds like, and I have played Morgan amps before, and I know that they're excellent. And so when this got kind of brought to my attention, I was excited because I know that Joe makes great amps, and I know that Neural digitizes amps incredibly well, and this is a great example of both of those things. You have access to a chime amp, a beautiful sparkly Fender style amp, and this absolutely massive high gain clean channel amp that is just both a great pedal platform, but also, as you heard in that intro track, which, spoiler alert, almost all the guitars on that intro were that SW50R, and now I really need to buy one of those amplifiers. That was all that amp for all of our kind of like high gain, gritty rhythm and lead tones. Morgan amps are very good, and this is a very strong showing of them. And it's brought in a great context as well. You have in front of the amp your kind of like preamp pedals. You have a great sounding compressor with a fast and a slow switch. You have a very Tube Screamer-esque mid-forward overdrive, kind of low gain, very much a great choice for pushing any of the 3 amplifiers. You also have a higher gain, really kind of like jagged and angular sounding higher gain overdrive that I am obsessed with, and a tremolo that just sounds right in all contexts. And behind it you have a tape delay and a massive, beautiful room and hall reverb at low decay settings. And as you kind of like fine tune the low pass and high pass filters on that reverb, you can get some great subtle room tones for just like a wide stereo spaciousness that doesn't overwhelm your guitar signal, or you can crank it up into absolutely stunningly beautiful, pristine hall ambience. I want to say, by the way, as an aside on this point, the tape delay is really fun because you have both a ping pong delay and a standard delay, and in either case you have a width control. And I love that the width control works on the ping pong because a lot of ping pong delays kind of bounce hard left and hard right, and there are very rare instances in which I want them to bounce hard left and hard right. I love that you can decide how far out that ping pong goes with that width control on that tape delay, and it's really great. So I have no bad things to say about this plugin suite. I think all 3 amps sound great. They all sound honest, and they are all paired with a singular 1x12 cabinet that kind of blends well with all three of them and really offers up a lot of flexibility in terms of mic choices. And you will hear us touch on that later in the video. My go-to mic pairings for DI style amp rigs tends to be a 57 and a 421, but something like a Ribbon 121 microphone brings a lot of additional low end to a context. And for things like a kind of like top boosty AC30 style chime amplifier that lacks a lot of low end, pulling a 121 in can bring a lot of low weight to a guitar amp without making things sound muddy. And it's that kind of flexibility that I love about this plugin. So let's get to our sound samples and let's give the Morgan Amps Suite a listen. Okay, if this is your first time in a NeuralDSP plugin, we're going to do a really fast run through of the kind of order of operations in terms of how you kind of navigate one of these plugins. But I'm also going to link in the description down below to a previous video I did where we kind of deep dive into the kind of features around the amp itself a little bit more. At the bottom, you have your tuner. You have your MIDI, which allows you to kind of like set MIDI mappings for a controller so you can kind of control your plugin with your feet or with some automation. You have a tap tempo, or you can type in your tap right here. You have a metronome that you can be listening to, as well as your settings allowing you to set your input and your output, your sample rate, your audio buffer size, and all of that stuff. I have mine set so that my high Z is my input and my outputs are virtual channels 3 and 4 so that the audio goes straight from the plugin as a standalone feature set to the DAW. And the reason I'm doing that is twofold. Number one is I find that the plugin has very little to almost no latency outside of a DAW, whereas it can have some latency inside of a DAW. And number two is this way I am not doing any post-processing or settings changes in the plugin after we record everything. So what you hear is what you get the whole way through. Up top, you have your input, gain, your output master for kind of like boosting or cutting your overall output to kind of match wherever you're headed after this. You have your doubler, you have your ability to transpose up and down a full octave, as well as that gate, which is very, very handy. In the center, you have your presets. All of mine are just my own because this is a pre-release copy and I don't have other people's. And then up top, you have your stomp boxes, your amp head, your cabinet, your EQ system, and your wet effects. We're going to go ahead and turn off everything but the amp and the cabinet right now. And the rationale for that is we're going to start with just those and then go from there. So we're going to start off with the SW50R. And this is kind of a high wattage, very loud, very clean style amplifier. It can get kind of edge of breakup-y, but I also consider it to probably be the best pedal platform in this thing, which is really, really nice. Knobs at kind of default the way it is right now. You're not going to get any breakup whatsoever, but also your bridge position is going to feel a little bit anemic. And as you can hear, that's very, very clean. So for this amplifier, and for most amplifiers, with a couple exceptions, as we kind of roll through some specific sounds in here, we are using a 57 and a 421. And my reason for kind of going with those two is I like the way they sound. I use them on almost every recording across multiple amplifiers, but we will jump over to a 121 for some of the more voxy voiced stuff in this thing. Let's give the reverb in the SW50R a listen, and then we'll just start kind of turning some knobs. like I said, for my money, I think kind of a just south of edge of breakup there is really great. I like a little bit of mid presence there. And my rationale for that is largely because I think that this is my favorite pedal platform in the device, or in the plugin. Obviously, this is going to be a very different voice in terms of amplifiers than the other one. Let's go ahead and give it the full reset as well. Here's going to be our very clean, voiced like a kind of heavily modded, modernized, kind of classic Princeton sound. All that sparkle. But with a very beautiful reverb in this one. I love this one with like a little bit of a treble boost and a bass cut. Let's jump over here, move that 57 off a little bit. It cuts really cleanly. But the beauty of it is it gets really, really gritty as well, which is really fun. It's very much that, especially with some overdrives in front of it and a little bit less of that reverb dwell. There's a sound I really love in there that is very reminiscent of kind of like great, like kind of like post-hardcore, kind of ragged sounding punk bands. Especially with a little bit of a boost in front of it. Let's jump over to our Stomp Boxes right now and actually utilize one of my favorite little tricks, which is the compressor with no compression, but just being used as a level boost. But like I said, also cleaned up, but using that level boost to kind of activate the faux tubes a little bit more. that into a big washy reverb is quite nice. And then this AC20, which is going to be kind of like the more voxy, chimey kind of thing, you'll notice right off the bat here, this is going to have the least low end to it because it's very much that sound. You can get more of it by switching to that bass control, which isn't always what I want out of a circuit like this. And so my advice, if you like this plugin and you grab it, is jump over here, take that 421 and swap it out for a ribbon. Now you're getting all that low end back in by merits of having a 121, which has a great low end response. Let's take that boost back out. It is just very pretty, you know? It's a really interesting approach to an AC style circuit here, because rather than like a proper like 2 or even 3 band EQ, you effectively just have that cut control, and then all other kind of like EQing gets done. Let's open that all the way up. Gets done by merit of your kind of like sun and moon switch. And that bass and treble switch, which actually gives you like some really great control. That kind of bassier sound, that really mellow thing with the cut wide open, can be a little woolly, but with that power style dialed back, or not the power, but the volume for some cleans. That's the kind of sound that you need to do. Go ahead and roll like a 120 hertz roll off for. But take both of those back to their brightest positions, which is pretty much what I want out of like an AC style circuit in all circumstances. And there's some really great cleans in there. As well as some great grits. Especially if you hit it with a little bit of that same kind of like that boost. Yeah, that sounds we used the SW50R for that guitar part on the intro, but I love the way that the AC20 handles it as well, because if I played the real version of this amp, I feel like it would be my go-to amp for almost everything, much like that PR12 is going to be once mine arrives. Yeah, that's a great boosted AC circuit. And of course, you have this this power control, which is basically kind of the Morgan tube power scaling attenuation that they have on a lot of their real amplifiers included here to give you a little bit of sag and kind of that kind of attenuated compression in a digital environment. As you can hear, it's not just that it's getting quieter, which it is, but it's also getting a lot squishier. Bring that volume back up. There are a lot of great use cases for being able to attenuate your power down in this environment. As you can hear, it sounds more open and kind of like breathy and airy with the power scaling totally like bypassed versus kind of starting to kind of compress that amplifier down a little bit. So let's jump back over to that 50R. Get back to our beloved 421. And a little bit less of that reverb. And let's give some of these stomp boxes as kind of intended a listen. I'm going to reset everything to stock configuration. And we'll start off with that compressor. Fast has got that quack. The slow has a little bit more of a two-way style. Kind of slow squish to it, which I really like. Can get pretty aggressive, which is why that mix control is really nice. I tend to like it to leave it pretty like low compression, but adding a little bit more volume. You kind of just want to set it so that you get a hair of that kind of VU meter responsiveness. It's great. Second up is, a vaguely green 3-knob overdrive. It's a tube screamer. It's some manner of tube screamer style circuit. Again, much like with that compressor, taking that drive all the way down and using it for like a little bit of a level boost can be really nice. great sound in little overdrive. It's nice and subtle in all the ways that like a good tube screamer should be. And then where the real magic happens in this thing, in my opinion, is this second one, two band and 4-control overdrive that is way more of a distortion. And this is the one that we used a lot on that intro track, especially for a lot of the more kind of like angry and articulate angular stuff. Taking the amp to something still pretty clean, but like that's, you know, that's not a very but you bring in that drive. Yeah, it's spitty and angry and kind of ragged. And it gets just insane. I tend to really like that one, mostly for just like the low level of clipping that it offers. That is still very kind of like angular and gritty, but pushing the amp a lot harder. Because that's, I think, where it gives you that kind of really great combination sweet spot of smooth saturation with chords. Palm mutes that still feel like they're holding together and kind of keeping that distortion. But will also give you individual notes, which for the kind of like lead parts, the very kind of like AFI inspired, as you can see by what's on the screen right now, inspired lead parts, those kind of like blended moments between single notes and chords feeling all even and articulate. I love it. It's my favorite overdrive in this thing. I think it sounds freaking great. And last but not least, something we have literally not used in this entire video yet is like a legitimately very great sounding trem, and it's a shame that I've been underutilizing it this whole time. Sounds great. It's got a sync or a free control, and so it can kind of like run to your tap tempo or be kind of like a freewheeling thing that kind of operates independently of your time-based effects. I should be using it more than I do. It's a great sounding trim. Moving away from our effects, we are stepping into our kind of like master EQ band, which is really nice for that, very necessary low pass filter that I think all guitars need in some capacity. Or high pass, I should say. And of course you have that low filter as well for kind of taming out any like sizzle. I tend to really like to push a little bit of 8K and a little bit of 500 Hertz, but of course you can kind of like fine tune and really kind of like make subtle or aggressive changes across the board. Yep, it's subtle, it's wonderful. I'm a big fan of this inclusion in all of their effects. Let's leave it turned on. Let's bring on a little bit of that, that compressor, and let's jump over to our wet effects. Starting, of course, with this delay, which has a couple of features that I really love, namely the option to choose between a ping pong or a stereo widening control. So we have that ping pong turned off right now. Let's go back and turn our reverb amplifier or reverb on our amp off, and completely widen open that tape delay. Tape drive sounds great, of course. And right there, you can already hear we are straight into some magic. So you can set very like mild width or really crazy wide sounds. And of course, you also have the ability to go to a ping pong instead. An underrated feature, by the way, is deciding how wide you want your ping pong to be. That's not in most ping pong equipped guitar pedals. Ping pong is almost always this. Hard left, hard right. And I'm actually very rarely a fan of the super hard left, hard right ping pong. And so the inclusion of I actually really love letting them kind of like cross-pollinate across that kind of like center middle space. Let's jump over to that Princeton. That PR12, I should say. Give it a little bit more level. course. You gotta do the tape stop. Rounding this out, let's take a look at, you've been here before. If you've seen a Neural plugin before, if you've listened to one before, you know the reverb's going to be good. Let's listen to this giant, massive, beautiful stereo reverb. You, of course, have your high and low dampening for kind of like reining it in. A pre-delay and the ability to make it pretty kind of like focused. Bring that treble down a little bit more. A little bit more of like a splashy small room. Or go to space instead. It took me a long time to kind of learn to appreciate pre-delay, but that as a method of kind of creating clarity while still If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for sticking around. Some of these sounds that you heard in this video are actually available to you via the artist presets in this plugin. For the first time, I've actually made presets for one of these releases. And so there are some kind of Mark Johnston presets in the Morgan amp suite from Neural, which is very exciting for me. If you want to check those out, go check out Neural's website, link below. If you want to talk to me about my presets, gear in general, or anything else, I have a Discord available exclusively to Patreon supporters. Once again, link in description down below. It's a great small community of people who love gear, love cocktails, and love talking about just kind of music production in general. So I hope to see you there, and until next time.